And we're back with Emma Knows Money with our very special guest, David Shavzin. And we're going to pick up, this is our third segment, we're going to pick up our conversation on exit and succession planning. And David, what do you think, in your opinion, like I see certain gaps that business owners have, but from your side of the table, what are some of the biggest gaps that you see, the financial gaps that you see business owners have?
Yeah, there are several there, and then it's probably one of the more important areas. Understanding your numbers, understanding each month, revenue, sales, how that revenue breaks down, having a good bookkeeping system, good bookkeeping support. Understanding what you're doing each month gives you so much information about decision making, whether it's going after new clients, getting into new markets, new services that you might offer. I talked to too many business owners who, when I ask them, hey, what was your revenue last year, sometimes they have trouble even coming up with that. Now, as I say, it helps just to run the business, but if you're going to go to a bank and get a loan, they're going to want to look at a few years of tax returns, financial statements, and they're going to want to know that you know your business. They're going to be loaning money to you. They want to get it back eventually, and they want confidence in the leadership of the company.
So having good financials, do you recommend that business owners do their own books?
I would answer it this way: if they are capable and understand it, or can learn it, absolutely. I always advise at least that they have a review of that, maybe monthly with a CPA, maybe quarterly. So it's really not a matter of should the business owner do it in and of itself. If it's something that they're capable, strong with, absolutely. Now, if they're doing it, this gets into a little bit of another issue, but if they're doing that and not letting go of it because they're not delegating and try to do everything themselves, that's also where they'll run into trouble.
Now, what about, let's talk a little bit about management. What do you think what are one of the things that a business owner should ensure that they have when it comes to a management team if they're looking at selling their business? One of the things I specialize in is the golden handcuffs, making sure that the business owner puts enough of a carrot in place so that the management team will stay on board, not only throughout the transition, but a couple of years after the business is sold. So what do you think, talk to me a little bit about management strength. Like what is that, what do you mean by that? What does that mean?
Yeah, no, and again, I will put it into different contexts. So the first thing we do think about is having a strong management team so that owner is not doing the books and everything else themselves, so that the institutional knowledge across the company is spread out among the leadership team and not the owner. If the owner sells the business and leaves, then what's the buyer left with? And if that management team that's left is not very strong, then again, it's not going to be an ideal sale price for the owner, for the original owner, for the seller. And when we look at management strength, I will say that on the other hand, it depends on the buyer. There are different types of buyers. So you may have a buyer who is already in the same industry as the seller, and they may not need or want that high-level management team because they already have one.
So they may be bringing their own people in.
Bringing their own people.
So it's really going to depend whether they're a competitor or if they're new to the industry?
Yeah, exactly. And other issues as well. Now, all that said, I still would strongly suggest that the development of the management team, the development of all the staff, in terms of training, education, skill sets, be worked on constantly, because you never know how that business will get sold down the line.
And even if the business doesn't get sold, I always talk to my clients about their management team from the standpoint of something may happen before you're ready to sell your business. You could get in a car accident, ski accident, right? You could be, you could have the flu. A lot of people are getting the flu. Yeah. You could have the flu for 4 weeks, be out of work for 4 weeks. You need to make sure that your management team can keep the business running while you're healing. Yeah. Or if you have to take care of your parents. I work a lot with the sandwich generation. And so a lot of my clients are now having to take care, figure out ways of providing care for your parents. So if you have to be away from the business, do you have a strong management team that could keep things going if you were just kind of virtually there?
Yes. So many good reasons to have a strong management team, including if you do have one and can really, truly delegate down, that frees you up as the owner to get so much more strategic and working on the business. And it's just something that the rest of the team cannot do.
So what risks do you think or do you see that business owners are not addressing?
how many hours do you have? There's so much, because I look at risk very broadly, and a lot of folks will talk about and think about liability insurance as risk. There's so many other categories of risk. You could think about regulatory risk, new laws coming on the books, existing ones that you're not following, compliance in all areas. In human resources, you probably have 2,000 rules and regulations that are very, 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 very costly if you're not following them. So when we work with our clients, we're doing an initial assessment of the business, and a big part of that is a risk assessment in all these categories. Quick other example, this was a colleague of a friend of mine who had a restaurant, and not quite out of the blue, but the city closed off one end of the street in front of his restaurant. So all that traffic that drives by, all the car traffic that goes through was gone. Now, if there had been a little bit of forethought, keeping up on what was going on in the government, regulation, environment, they may have heard about it earlier. But all kinds of things can go wrong, which is why we always say, always be planning, always be thinking.
Don't get caught flat-footed. Don't get caught flat-footed. Now, most business owners, they have in their head that, one day they're going to decide that they want to sell their business, and they're going to throw out an offer, and a buyer is going to come and say, that's a great price, and I'm going to buy your company. Let me write you a check, and hand them a check, and then they hop on a plane, and then they're in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. How does that work? Does it really work? Does it play out that way?
Never, ever, 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 ever. Unless you've got a very, very, very cool, high-tech product possibly in that world. So no, it's rarely that it happens that way, which is why I always say starting early, really preparing, using that team around you of advisors gives you much more flexibility, because you're getting better and better as you go, and having more leverage when you do get to those conversations. And you're able to be considering different avenues, because when you get down to it, that might be a fluke that someone just, wants it right away. It's going to be rare, so it's going to be an ongoing negotiation back and forth. It may be somebody in the business. It may be a business partner. It may be an outside buyer who's not in the industry. It might be an investment group. So no, it never happens that way. But there's a lot of things that you can do, a lot of the things that we talked about, to be prepared and be in the best position possible.
Now, how long does a business, once two people do agree, or there is a possible buyer, how long could that take?
I had an old boss who used to ask me, how long is a piece of string? Almost no answer. If you're down to, just kind of depends where in the process really it is the answer, because if you have someone and there's absolute agreement that person is going to buy your business, it can be done relatively quickly if both are of good mind. Something that facilitates that is having somebody who can work with the two and between the two buyers and help the negotiation process along. I've seen it happen in a few months. I've seen it happen in 9 months, a year. There's so many issues, and there are always things that are uncovered down the line that the seller may not even have been thinking about, or miscommunication that can derail it. Then you've got so many advisors in the mix. You've got the attorneys on both sides. You've got the financial folks on both sides. What are the tax implications? Everything up your alley as you're working with them from a financial advisory standpoint.
Well, and to me, from my standpoint, the best time to start figuring out what to do with money that you get from the sale of a business, we have to have the conversation almost 5 years out, because if you wait till months before you're going to sell your business, we don't have as much leeway to kind of tax shelter some of that money. So it's one of those things, again, where you have to have your team on board, everybody working to make sure that they're benefiting you in the best way.
Yeah, exactly. More time, more flexible.
More time, more flexible. So, David, I want to thank you for coming by today. And if people want to reach out to you to, let's say they have questions, or they feel that they're in need, they're ready to grow, they're looking at selling in the next few years, how can people get in touch with you?
Phone is the best way, 770-329-5224, and the email address is dshavzin@shavzinassociates.com. Those are probably. Are
you on Facebook?
I am. LinkedIn is probably better for me on the business side of things, and then my website is shavzinassociates.com.
Well, thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Thank you.
We'll be back next week with Emma Knows Money.